Well, hello, Mary Richards.
Hello, Lizzie Lasater.
Welcome back to our back care month at Experiential Anatomy. www.experientialanatomy.yoga is the place to go to stay in touch with us. So today, Mary, I want to talk about scoliosis. This, I have to say, is as a yoga teacher, I find it overwhelming and complicated and somewhat scary. If a student says they have scoliosis, I'm just kind of like slowly back away. I feel, underqualified because I know there are so many different types of scoliosis, and I feel like I'm not able to immediately offer a student insight depending, there's your phone, depending on in all the different variations of different poses. So that's one thing. We're going to do a whole webinar on scoliosis in this back care course that I'm so looking forward to learning. But today I thought I'd just ask you a really simple question. Which poses are good or should be avoided with scoliosis?
So that's a huge question. Okay. So let's first talk really briefly about what scoliosis is.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm going to pull up Pocket Anatomy.
Yes, Pocket Anatomy is our wonderful learning tool that we use in all of our experiential anatomy courses. And it's just exactly what you're seeing here. Mary can teach and talk to us, share her screen, and we can see this 3D visualization of the human body with all of its layers. We're down at the bones right now, but we can go up and add muscles and we can see everything that's going on. It's so cool.
Yes, so we can just lay in. Okay, so I'm giving us sort of a backside view so that we can see the normal curves, the cervical and lumbar lordosis and the kyphosis of the thoracic and sacral regions. Okay, now when we look posteriorly, if we look directly at the back of this image, you see that the vertebral column is stacked. Okay, well in scoliosis, there are different kinds. So scoliosis is named for the region of the vertebral column that's affected, and it's named for the convexity. Okay, so this aspect. All right, so we look at the vertebral column and we can see how linear the relationship is. But with scoliosis, what may happen is this. So you see this would be what's called a right. It's hard to write without a support for the wrist. Thoracic. Right. Thoracic. That's the most common. That's the most common because most people are right-handed. Okay. So we have this lateral deviation in the normal curves of the vertebral column. That's scoliosis. And the big thing when we're practicing or working with students who come to us with scoliosis is that, we often have an idea that we want symmetry.
Right.
We want the right and the left sides of the body to look the same. But symmetry is an illusion. Okay? Because the reality is the right and left sides of the body are different. And so when we're working with scoliosis, instead of thinking about the right side trying to function like the left, the question we want to ask ourselves is, how do I strengthen this side, which is already kind of perpetually stretched out because of the way we're rotated and side bent? And then how do I stretch the short side? So we want to then think about reframing this idea of symmetry into one of harmony. How can I facilitate the relationship between the right and left sides of the body?
Right.
And so that means, for instance, that there's also a component of rotation with scoliosis, which we'll talk about in the course.
Right.
We need to elongate, derotate, stretch the concavity, strengthen the convexity. Those are the 4 really fast rules for working with scoliosis.
Spoiler alert.
Right? So we want to then think about, when I look at the person in mountain pose, what's the relationship between the feet?
Right.
If someone's turned, let's say they're side bent to the left and they're rotated to the right,
Mm-hmm.
do I want their feet aligned, or should one foot be forward of the other? And so this is what we look at. We start playing with the relationships between the hands and the feet. Say if someone's in downward facing dog and you can really see the scoliosis, maybe they need to step 1 foot back and place one hand farther forward.
Can you give us an example from your teaching, your decades of teaching, Mary? Can you give us an example of a student you've worked with the scoliosis? What kind of effects you might see when you start working like that? It's not that the scoliosis then goes back to straight, or is it? Or tell us a little bit about what kind of success stories you've had working with students with scoliosis.
So I love to work with scoliosis. I do a whole series called Scoliosis RX, where, we reduce the lateral deviation and improve breath, sitting, standing, walking, sleeping. And what I hear most often is, for instance, just sitting at the desk, I'll use props to help, lower the short side and things like that to balance the shoulder girdle. And then the person's like, oh my gosh, I can actually sit at my desk and work for longer than 20 minutes. And I'm not constantly thinking about my back. Or I now enjoy my yoga practice because I'm not trying to do everything the same.
Love
and
that.
I love that because your mom says something that I really appreciate, and it's a mantra of mine, and it's, we teach people, not poses.
Yeah.
And working with scoliosis for me is really such a beautifully accessible example of teaching people, because it challenges these ideas of symmetry and alignment.
Yeah, and one of the things that you and Mom teach, which is so enriching, is just, it's so basic, but the idea to look first, to really look at your students, because in order to teach people, not poses, you have to actually look at the body in front of you. And what's been happening to me over the past year as a kind of testimonial, I mean, we've been getting so many amazing emails and feedbacks from our experiential anatomy course. People are really feeling the difference in their teaching. But what's happened to me is I'm noticing, especially with scoliosis, it just happened this weekend, where I will look at a student in a pose and I'm really starting, it jumps out at me. I'm seeing the scoliosis, like I'm like, oh, I see that. I really am without trying, I'm absorbing this information about your body, that you're having an asymmetrical spine. And I've even started asking, like, oh, do you have a scoliosis? Like, oh, I'm seeing something here. Do you have a slight scoliosis? So that's been huge for me, just to even begin to see that begin to realize that I'm seeing my students differently.
I really enjoy hearing that.
It's a little scary sometimes when you say that and then they don't know they have a scoliosis.
Yeah, so the way that I approach that, I'd like to just share this, is I typically don't say, hey, do you know you have a scoliosis? Or has anyone ever told you you have scoliosis? But what I'll say to someone is, when you look at yourself in the mirror, what catches your eye? Do you notice that one shoulder is higher than the other?
Right.
And then that tends to open up the conversation. And because here's the reality, all of us have a functional scoliosis in some way because we're handed.
Okay, this is a great place to close our video. Tell us a little bit about this. No, because I've never really even thought about that before. So tell us about what does functional scoliosis mean?
So a functional scoliosis means that we have muscle imbalances between the right and left side of the body related to repetitive motion. You know, it's why it's important, for instance, when we're sitting at our computer to move the mouse, to not always use, you know, your left or your right hand for the mouse. We need to change things up because if we just continue doing things the same way, we develop imbalances, functional imbalances in how our muscles are moving us. And that happens to all of us. And so what we can do on the mat is we can use principles of judicious asymmetry, placing the feet differently in relationship to one another, changing how we rotate the rib cage to address those functional imbalances and establish harmony. We can use our asana to re-educate how we are in space.
And I might offer that sounds really like the beginnings of a definition of yoga therapeutics.
Yeah.
Love it. All right, Mary Richards, the website is www.experientialanatomy.yoga. Go there to stay in the loop about our upcoming back care webinar course. Mary, where can everyone find you on the internet?
You can find me at maryrichardsyoga.com and on Facebook at A Little Yoga Goes a Long Way, because I believe that. And on Insta, Yoga with Mary Richards.
Okay, I'm LizzieLasater.com on Instagram and Facebook. We will talk again very soon. Namaste.
Namaste.
Where's the stop button here?